Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to, of course, acknowledge the chair of TSLS, the CEO, the acting VC, board members of TSLS, and of course all the students who are here, including the parents. Do not intend to make a long speech, but essentially to highlight to you some of the key strategic reasons why we have invested so immensely in the education sector. As you know, that education now is completely free from EC to year 13. And of course, we've now also provided, since 2013, the Tertiary Education Loan Scheme and also the Topper Scheme. And fundamentally, the toppers have been pegged to the marks you attain, in particular priority areas of the economy in terms of the sector that we want grown. Traditionally, we have been very weak in terms of the number of people who want to get into the technical areas of the economy. So if you see the topper spread, it has traditionally, now we have seen a lot more spread, about 80 to 85% of it in the technical areas. So engineers, nurses, doctors, marine scientists, foresters, land surveyors, town planners. And in the past number of years prior to COVID, we also started giving scholarships for people to study overseas, in particular areas that did not have any courses available in Fiji. So for example, there are certain areas in science, in undergraduate studies, and also even things like architecture that's not available in Fiji. So we had a limited number of scholarships available for that space. Furthermore, of course, TELS became really readily available. I've got the figures here. We've so far spent $1.2 billion since the establishment of TSLS since 2014 in the toppers and TELS area. There's a significant amount of money, $1.2 billion. Of course, some people are, toppers don't have to pay back the loans or the scholarship they've got. They simply have to work in Fiji for a period of time. They don't have to work for government or any public sector. They can work in the private sector as long as they contribute to the country. And in respect of TELS, of course you pay back the loan, but we have also made some significant changes that if you pay back the loan or 50% of it within a particular period of time, you forego the payment of the balance of the 50%, and there's various permutations to that in respect of paying back loans in a shorter period of time, and your debt is forgiven. It's now managed through FRCS. In respect of what we are doing today over here with the MBBS course, we were informed that there were a certain number of places that were, in terms of the ability of government to have the intake of students in MBBS, and a couple of other areas of studies, there is no need for them to be able to source those number of doctors. So that's why, together with COVID-19, there was a restriction on the scholarships available in the MBBS field. However, we did make a promise to say that we will be funding a one-off grant to those private students. At least they will provide them some relief. As you know, that with COVID-19, government's revenues halved overnight. With the borders being shut down, the ability to generate revenue, and then the commensurate reduction in our GDP meant that there was a lot more strain on government spending. However, we said that we must continue to fund some of the key areas in government expenditure. So we did not stop free education in high school or primary schools. We did not stop, for example, poverty alleviation scheme, rural pregnant women getting food vouchers, disabled persons, all of that continued. We did not fund, for example, funding in terms of road building, water access. Of course, some of the capital projects were reduced. So the significant areas, civil servants did not get a pay cut, your lecturers did not get a pay cut. We continue to fund FNU. We are part of the Fijian National University, which is completely funded by the Fijian government. And again, I think close to $500 million have actually been given to FNU since its inception, including capital projects. So a number of those areas we continue to fund because from strategic perspective it's critically important. As highlighted by Dr. Amy and I think Hasmukh too, was the fact that we now have more females in high school. We now have more females actually at university level. Some people here in the audience are as old as I am, and others perhaps slightly older, and they can tell you stories about how a lot of people in Fiji used to drop out of high school because their parents could not afford to send them to school. Where if you had 5 or 6 kids or children going to school, if the parents had to choose, they generally would send the boys to school and the girls would stay home, because the thinking was they'd get married in any case. So a lot of women lost out. We've been told so many stories of people who said, you know, I was a very good student, but because my father could not afford to send me to school, my mother could not afford to send me to school, I did not complete high school. Or I was very good, I completed high school, but they could not afford to send me to university. Today, those opportunities, of course, are far more than what it was before. In fact, limited before, far greatly limited before in the previous times. So that's the sort of overall strategy. One point I'd like to use this occasion to also make some comments on is that, and again it's also a message to the university. I'll give you a story. I received a phone call, a few messages from a young man who's currently studying to be a physiotherapist. And he said, I'm very concerned because I don't think I'll get a job. And there's so many of us who are doing physiotherapy, but there's no positions in government for physiotherapists. And he's right, because the number of established positions for physiotherapists is actually low compared to the number of people who are about to graduate. So I think people need to also understand that because you graduate in a particular area does not mean, in particular in the public sector, that all these positions are ready made for you to be taken in as graduates. The point being is that when people are looking at studying, we need to be able to understand what are the needs in society. There's of course a need to have more physiotherapists. Government's focus in the past two and a half years has been in terms of dealing with our problem with COVID-19. There's obviously been a lot more funding in respect of the health services to deal with COVID-19, whether it's to do with quarantining, whether it's to do with food delivery. So the ability to increase the number of positions for physiotherapists obviously is limited. But as the economy picks up, there's no doubt there is need for more physiotherapists. But we need to gradually build that up. So that's a general message. But there are certain other sectors where we have a huge skill sets lack of skill sets in those areas. I mean, how many sort of trained architects do we have? How many trained sort of marine scientists do we have? Foresters do we have? There's certain, sometimes generally there tends to be over a period of time, some people, it becomes very trendy to study a particular subject. And so you may have, for example, a huge intake. So again, a message to FNU too. The courses need to be delivered on a needs basis. Some people may have the passion, but people also need to understand that when you study in a particular area, if there are not enough positions, your ability to get a job immediately after graduating may be somewhat limited. So I think those are some of the aspects that we're looking at as far as doctors are concerned. We are currently working on a paper to look at perhaps getting more doctors out in the rural areas. There are a number of nursing stations, number of health centers where there's only nurses there. So there's perhaps an opportunity to put doctors out in those remote areas. A few weeks ago I was in the northeastern part of Banwa Levu towards Undu Point, etc. Very good job some of the nurses do there, but perhaps there's an opportunity for us to put doctors there in those remote locations, because some of those people living there in the villages, it's very hard for them to actually get to a doctor. It's 2-3 hours away. So if we are able to put doctors, now please understand, before we can actually put a doctor in that position, it's not only about the salary, it's about where will they stay. So we have to build the quarters for them, that accommodation needs to be there. So as part of this, many people, many graduates are hesitant to go to rural areas because there's no internet, there's no mobile phone connectivity. I mean, these are the things you all take for granted over here. You can very quickly do a Google search, you can do Facebook, etc. So as part of government's project, you will see that we have this Northern Connectivity Project. We spend about $1.4 million or so, where we're connecting rural areas in Banwa Levu to things like internet, to the Wi-Fi. So as part of what we did 2 weeks ago, we connected a number of schools that did not have Wi-Fi or did not have actually internet connection. So we Wi-Fi'd the area around the school, so if there's a village close by, the people from the village could come to actually the school grounds within 150 or 300 meters and get connected, so they can talk to people, through Viber, WhatsApp, etc. Two of the locations we went to were also nursing stations. So the nurses could get connected. They could have some basic form of telemedicine. So we gave all these locations where we connected them to the internet. We gave them a PC, we gave them laptops, we gave them webcams, we gave them printers. So these are very sort of basic type of functions. So it will hopefully, if some of you get posted to a rural area, you'll go, clapping hands and very joyfully, as opposed to saying that we'll be cut off from the rest of the world. So it's all about building blocks. It's about making those areas attractive. It's about making sure that you have the right facilities in terms of your quarters available, in terms of the internet connectivity. So we need to look at all of these things, holistically. And all of this, of course, can be done if there's consistency in policy. There's a particular plan that's been laid out. We're following that plan. In order for us to be able to realize the full realization of the outcome of the objectives of the plan, we need to be consistently following that plan. So that's essentially what I wanted to say in respect of career paths. There's obviously a number of growing areas, and some of you over here may be friends or family, join the students who are doing MBBS, but there's a lot of opportunities. For example, in the BPO sector. We just had a launch last week of Outsource Fiji, where there's a prediction that in 10 years' time, Fiji potentially could have 100,000 jobs in the BPO sector. Business processing outsourcing. FNU has now developed one particular course in that area, the first step course in that. These are the sort of all the building blocks, and that we can look at the new economic sectors within Fiji is resilient. Even if there's a cyclone, you still have customers, you still have people calling up from overseas, wanting to know about the insurance claim or processing of their accounts, etc. There's a lot of jobs in that field too. Last point I'd like to make, because we are at FNU, is the tremendous role that FNU actually plays in the TVET sector. FNU has I think a wonderful role to play in what we call it plays the role of a dual purpose university. It's not just purely about academia itself, but it's also about the vocational, the training, the engineering side of things, because there are a lot of people, many countries, even if you look at post-World War II, countries like Japan, like Germany, their economies grew tremendously because they had people with the right trade skills. They were able to, fix things up, were able to get into technology. They were very good with their hands. They had the discipline in terms of, processing lines, assembly lines. So that's a role that FNU, of course, can play, and we see enormous opportunity. And we need people with those skill sets also to complement people like yourselves who will be doctors very soon, because you need the technicians to help you do the job. In the same way the technicians need you to make sure that they're also healthy. So it's a symbiotic relationship. And this is what the overall objective of what we are doing. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the chair and the board, for doing this, taking us into the next stage of this Toppers and TEL scholarship scheme. We, of course, as we've mentioned previously, that we're looking at expanding more services, providing more facilities in the education field. We are only limited by our capacity in terms of how quickly we are able to bounce back from COVID-19. And at this point in time, all signs are there that we're on a very good path down that particular track. So congratulations to all of you who are receiving this grant today, and also congratulations to you and your family members. Families are, of course, very important because they do provide the stability and the support to you. And I'm sure they're also very proud of you receiving this $10,000 grant. Thank you very much.